What happens when a helpful surprise turns into a total legal nightmare? In today's story, we follow Jake, a dedicated fish enthusiast who returns from a trip to find his expensive aquarium gone and his beloved pets released into the wild by his girlfriend, Becky. Watch as a simple breakup turns into a high-stakes battle in small claims court. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more daily drama. Jake sat on his worn-out blue couch, staring at the empty space where his big glass tank used to be. It was quiet. Too quiet. For years, that corner of the room had been filled with the soft hum of a water pump and the tiny bubbles of an air stone. Now there was just a dry spot on the floor and a weird smell of old pond water. Jake felt like his heart had been scooped out with a net. He loved his fish. They weren't just pets that swam in circles, they were his best friends. He had a big, grumpy Oscar fish named Big Blue and a school of silver dollars that flashed like coins under the LED lights. He had spent years making sure the water was just right, testing it with little strips and adding stuff to make it perfect. Becky, his girlfriend, was in the kitchen making toast like nothing was wrong. She had been complaining about the fish for months. She said the room smelled like a swamp, and the bubbling noise kept her awake at night, even though her snoring was way louder than any filter. Becky hated how much time Jake spent cleaning the glass and feeding them special frozen worms. She called it a dumb hobby for a kid. Jake tried to tell her that it made him feel calm after a long day of school and work, but she just rolled her eyes and told him to grow up. The fight that changed everything happened on a Tuesday. Jake had to go away for a 3-day trip to visit his sick grandpa. He spent 2 hours showing Becky exactly how much food to drop in the tank. He even put the food in little plastic cups labeled Day 1, Day 2, and Day 3. He begged her not to touch the buttons on the heater or the filter. Becky just looked at her phone and said, Yeah, I got it. It's just fish, Jake." He left feeling a bit worried, but he trusted her because they had been together for 2 years. He thought she loved him enough to care about the things he cared about. When Jake got home on Friday night, the house was dark and smelled like lemon spray. He walked toward the living room to say hi to Big Blue, but the tank was gone. The whole thing. The glass, the gravel, the plants, and the fish. His stomach did a backflip. He ran into the bedroom and found Becky reading a book. "Where are they?" he asked, his voice shaking. Becky didn't even look up. She just said she took care of the problem because she wanted to surprise him with a clean, quiet house. She told him she sold the tank on the internet and rehomed the fish to a better place. Jake felt like he couldn't breathe. He asked her where she took them. Becky finally looked at him, her face turning a little red. She admitted she didn't actually find them a new home. She said they looked stressed because he was gone, so she took them to the local park and let them go in the big lake. Jake felt his face go hot. He knew that putting pet fish in a cold lake was basically a death sentence for them. They were tropical fish. They needed warm water and special food. They wouldn't last a night in the wild, and even if they did, they could hurt the local ecosystem. He started yelling, which he never did. He called her names and told her she was a fish killer. Becky started crying and said he was being totally dramatic over a bunch of animals that don't even have feelings. She told him she sold the tank for $100 and spent the money on a nice dinner for them to share when he got back. Jake couldn't believe his ears. She killed his pets and then used the money from their house to buy steak. He told her to get out. He didn't care that it was raining or that her car was in the shop. He threw her bags in the hallway and told her they were over. The next morning, Jake called his buddy Marcus. Marcus was the kind of guy who knew everything about rules and how to get even. When Jake told him what happened, Marcus didn't laugh. He told Jake that those fish were expensive and that the tank alone was worth way more than $100. Jake did the math in his head. Between the custom glass, the high-end filters, the lights, and the rare fish, he had spent over $5,000. It wasn't just a hobby, it was an investment. Marcus told him he should sue her in small claims court to get his money back. At first, Jake wasn't sure. He didn't want to be the guy who sues his ex-girlfriend, but then he looked at the empty corner again. He thought about Big Blue and how the fish used to follow his finger across the glass. He thought about how Becky didn't even say sorry. She actually told her friends that Jake was unstable and obsessed with fish. That was the final straw. He went down to the courthouse and filled out the papers. He wanted every cent back. He wanted her to understand that his things, and the lives of his pets, actually mattered. When the papers were delivered to Becky, she went nuclear. She called him 50 times in 1 hour. She sent him mean texts saying he was ruining her life over goldfish. Her mom even called Jake's mom to complain. Becky's friends started posting stuff on social media about how Jake was a petty loser. But Jake didn't budge. He had receipts. He had photos of the tank. He even found the ad she posted online where she bragged about getting rid of this junk fast. He saved a screenshot of the ad as evidence. The day of the court hearing was super tense. Jake wore his only suit, which was a little tight in the shoulders. Becky showed up with her new boyfriend, a guy named Chad who wore way too much cologne. Chad kept smirking at Jake, trying to act tough. The judge was an old lady who looked like she didn't have time for games. She asked Jake to explain what happened. Jake spoke clearly. He told her about the years of work, the cost of the equipment, and the fact that Becky had no right to touch his property. Becky tried to tell the judge that she was cleaning and that the fish were unhappy. She said she was doing Jake a favor because he was addicted to the tank. The judge didn't look impressed. She asked Becky if she had permission to sell the items. Becky mumbled no. Then the judge asked for the receipts. Jake handed over a big folder. He had everything organized by date. The judge spent a long time looking through them. She looked at the price of the Oscar fish and her eyebrows went way up. Chad tried to pipe up and say that fish don't cost that much, but the judge told him to be quiet or leave the room. Becky started to look nervous. She realized that this wasn't just a silly fight, it was a real legal problem. The judge noted that what Becky did was called conversion, which is a fancy word for stealing someone's stuff and changing it or selling it. Since she also dumped the fish, she had destroyed the property entirely. The judge looked at Becky and told her that her actions were cold and calculated. The final bill was even higher than Jake expected. The judge ruled that Becky had to pay for the full replacement value of everything. Because she was so mean about it and did it while he was away, the judge added some extra fees for emotional distress regarding the loss of the pets. The total came to $6,000. Becky gasped and started crying for real this time. Chad looked like he wanted to disappear. Jake just felt a weird sense of relief. It wasn't about the money, really. It was about someone finally saying that what she did was wrong. After the court date, Becky tried one last time to get out of it. She sent Jake an email saying she didn't have the money and that he should be a man and drop the charges. Jake didn't even reply. He gave the court order to a collection agency. He knew it would take a while to get the money, but he was patient. He started looking at new tanks online. This time, he wanted something even bigger. He wanted to start over, but he knew he would never let anyone treat his passion like trash ever again. The money didn't show up in Jake's bank account right away, but the drama showed up on his phone within minutes. It started with the inner circle of their friend group. Sarah, who had been Becky's best friend since they were kids, sent Jake a text that was basically one long scream in all capital letters. She told him he was a monster for taking a broke college girl to court. She said that Becky was having panic attacks because she didn't have $6,000 just sitting in her pocket. Jake looked at the text and then looked at the empty space in his living room. He remembered how it felt to realize his fish were gasping for air in a freezing lake. He blocked Sarah without saying a single word back. Then came the group chat of doom. This was a chat with 10 of their mutual friends where they usually talked about where to get pizza or what movies to see. Becky had gone in there and posted a picture of her crying with the caption, "I guess 2 years of love means nothing compared to some scaly water breathers." Half the group started hearting her message and sending her virtual hugs. They acted like Jake had physically hurt her instead of just asking a judge to make things fair. Jake felt like he was being voted off an island he had lived on for years. He saw people he had known for a long time calling him petty and scary. One guy named Tyler, who Jake used to help with math homework, even said that Jake was acting like a villain in a movie. It was weird to see how fast people would turn on you when they only heard one side of the story. They didn't see the receipts or the way Becky laughed when she first told him she got rid of the tank. But not everyone was against him. Marcus stayed solid. He went into that same group chat and dropped a truth bomb. He posted the link to the local laws about dumping pet fish into public lakes. He explained that Becky didn't just move the fish, she committed a crime that could have hurt the local environment. He also pointed out that she stole $5,000 worth of stuff. If she stole his car and sold it for a sandwich, would you guys still be crying for her? Marcus asked. The chat went quiet for a long time after that. A few days later, Jake went to his favorite local pet shop, the Fish Cave, to clear his head. The owner, a tall guy with a gray beard named Old Pete, knew Jake well. When Jake told him the whole story, old Pete almost dropped the bag of fish food he was holding. He was so mad he offered to testify if Jake ever needed it for an appeal. He told Jake that an Oscar fish like Big Blue was special and that you couldn't just replace a fish that had its own personality. Old Pete took Jake to the back of the shop where the huge, display-only tanks were. He showed him a new kind of glass called low-iron glass that was so clear it looked like the fish were floating in midair. He told Jake that if he wanted to start over, he would give him a justice discount. Seeing all those beautiful, swimming colors made Jake feel a little bit of hope for the first time in weeks. He realized that Becky could take his stuff, but she couldn't take away the thing he loved doing. Meanwhile, Becky was finding out that a court order isn't something you can just ignore like a chore. Since she didn't pay the $6,000 by the deadline, the collection agency started the process of garnishing her wages. This meant that every time she got a paycheck from her job at the mall, a chunk of it was taken out automatically and sent to Jake. When she saw her first, smaller paycheck, she lost her mind. She tried to call Jake from a new number, crying about how she couldn't pay her car insurance. Jake felt a tiny bit of guilt for about 2 seconds, but then he remembered the dinner she bought with the money from his tank. She had literally eaten the money she got from selling his hobby. He told her she should ask Chad for the money since Chad was so brave in the courtroom. That was the last time they spoke. Jake changed his number and deleted his old social media accounts. He wanted a fresh start where no one knew him as the fish guy who sued his girlfriend. With the first few payments from the court, Jake didn't buy a new tank right away. Instead, he bought a high-tech security camera for his front door and a new lock for his bedroom. He had learned a hard lesson about who to trust. He also spent some money on a nice dinner for Marcus to thank him for being the only person who didn't treat him like a jerk. They sat at a steakhouse and talked about everything except fish and ex-girlfriends. A month later, a big truck pulled up to Jake's house. 2 guys hopped out and carried a massive wooden crate into his living room. It was the new tank. It was even bigger than the old one, 120 gallons of pure potential. As Jake started to rinse the new black sand and position the pieces of driftwood, he felt a sense of peace. The room didn't feel empty anymore. It felt like he was building a new world, one where he was the one in charge. He decided to name his new centerpiece Fish Justice. It was a bright orange cichlid with a lot of attitude. Every time he looked at Justice swimming through the bubbles, he thought about how hard he had fought to get back to this moment. The drama with the friends had faded away, and the people who stayed were the ones who actually mattered. He was still the fish guy, but now he was the fish guy who knew how to stand up for himself. The group chat of doom didn't just go quiet, it basically exploded like a cheap water heater. After Marcus posted those facts about the law, people started picking sides like they were in a war. Sarah kept trying to make Jake look like a bully, but then someone else in the chat, a quiet girl named Lily, spoke up. She asked Becky if it was true that she spent the fish money on a fancy steak dinner. When Becky didn't answer for 3 hours, everyone knew it was true. The chat turned into a huge mess of people arguing until Jake finally just hit the leave group button. It felt like taking off a pair of shoes that were way too tight. A few weeks after the new tank was set up, Jake felt like he should try to go out again. He was tired of just talking to Justice the cichlid, even though Justice was a great listener. He went to a local coffee shop to study for his big science test. While he was there, he saw a girl named Maya who was wearing a shirt with a drawing of a giant squid on it. Jake thought it was a cool shirt, so he pointed at it and said, "Nice cephalopod." Maya laughed and sat down at the table next to him. They started talking about the ocean and weird sea creatures. Jake was super nervous. He didn't want to bring up the "my ex-girlfriend killed my fish and I sued her" story on a first meeting because that makes you sound like a crazy person. But Maya was really into nature. She told him she wanted to be a marine biologist. Jake felt his face turn red when he realized he actually had something in common with her. They talked for 2 hours about coral reefs and why sharks are actually misunderstood. When Maya asked what he did for fun, Jake took a deep breath. He decided to be honest but keep it simple. He told her he had a big freshwater tank and that he was really into aquascaping, which is just a fancy way of saying he moves rocks and plants around underwater to make it look like a forest. Maya's eyes lit up. She didn't call him a nerd or tell him he was obsessed. She asked if she could see a picture of it. Jake showed her a photo of the new 120-gallon setup. "That is so cool," Maya said. "The way the light hits the sand looks like a real riverbed." Jake felt like he was floating. It was the first time in years that a girl didn't roll her eyes at his hobby. They traded numbers, and Jake walked home feeling like he had won the lottery. He realized that the problem wasn't that his hobby was childish. The problem was that Becky was just a mean person who didn't respect him. Back at home, the mailbox had a yellow envelope in it. It was a letter from the collection agency. Because Becky had tried to quit her job to avoid the wage garnishment, the court had moved to attach her tax refund and a small savings account she had. The letter said Jake was going to get a lump sum of $2,000 by the end of the month. It was finally happening. The money she stole was coming back, piece by piece. Jake looked at his new tank. It was crystal clear. The plants were starting to grow tall, and the fish looked happy and fat. He thought about how much he had learned about people. He learned that some friends are only there for the fun times, but guys like Marcus will stay in the trenches with you. He learned that loving someone doesn't give them the right to destroy your things. And mostly, he learned that standing up for yourself is scary, but it's the only way to get your life back. That night, he sent a text to Maya. He asked her if she wanted to go to the big aquarium in the city next weekend. She texted back, yes, with a little fish emoji. Jake smiled and turned off the living room lights. The only glow in the house came from the blue LED lights of the tank, casting long, peaceful shadows against the wall. For the first time in a long time, the house didn't smell like lemon spray or sadness. It just smelled like home.